Hi everyone, I'm Dale Smith, aka Journo Dale, and we're here to talk about Canadian politics.
All right, we are back with Artur Wilczynski, former senior intelligence official, former diplomat, now at the University of Ottawa. And it has been a raucous week of revelations around intelligence and the Member of Parliament, Michael Chong. And Artur has some experience in these kinds of matters. So I figured we'd chat with him. I think, first of all, the last time we chatted, we talked a little bit about some of the problems with intelligence moving up the chain. And
Yep.
that seems to be at the heart of what is been at what's been talked about this last week. And I'm wondering if you can just kind of elaborate on where you see that breakdown might have been.
Sure. Like I can't speak to the specificity of what happened in this precise
For
case because
sure.
I just wasn't there. But I just do know that the distribution, dissemination, and consumption of intelligence is a complicated matter. And there are a lot of actors that are involved, a lot of different attitudes towards intelligence that can affect, how people receive it. So intelligence is produced by a wide number of actors in Canada, and
Mhm.
we are also consumers of intelligence produced by Five Eyes partners. So there's a lot. There's a big volume of intelligence, and the challenge is to make sure that the right information makes it in front of the right people at the right time. And when you have essentially a fire hose of intelligence, it's really important for people who work for senior officials, for deputy ministers, for ministers, for the prime minister, for the clerk of the Privy Council, and others, to be able to triage the information that they get. And it's a judgment call.
Right.
And at times, when there is a large volume, where there are other competing interests that are at play, specific pieces of intel can get missed. That doesn't excuse it, right? I mean, I think that
Hmm.
the fact that there was a piece of information, and it's been confirmed in the media, so I'm comfortable talking
Yeah.
about it. When there was a piece of information that threatens a member of parliament or a member of parliament's family, there should have really been a protocol that this was flagged. And quite frankly, earlier, and not necessarily in the context of what's been also making it into the media domain, which was that it was within a relatively large threat assessment piece of like multiple pages. When you have something like, MP X's family is being threatened by official Y,
Hmm.
that should set off some pretty robust alarm bells. And there should have been a way to flag it and get it to ministers or political staff at the very least, because the way that intelligence is circulated, again, each agency has its own way of getting information to different clients. Clients are not all the same. There's a different familiarity with them. The Privy Council office is very robust. There are lots of clients at the Privy Council office that serves the Prime Minister, but there are other ministers who also would have received similar types of information. Right? It wouldn't just go to the Privy Council office.
Right.
It would have gone or been available to officials at public safety, officials at global affairs, officials at national defense. It's not a small cohort of individuals that would have seen that. And but again, the challenge is that judgment call. Is what else was on the plate? We know that this was at a time when Afghanistan was winding down. We know that there are other issues that needed to be brought forward. So to be blunt, I'm not surprised that it fell through the cracks. It's terrible,
Hmm.
but it doesn't shock me as it seems to have shocked others. Because
Yeah.
I do think, and I'll shut up in a sec because I tend to. I know you want to get a word in edgewise, I'm sure. I mean, one of the things that I think that this entire controversy, the entire public debate around foreign interference, what it has revealed, I think, are some of the strategic challenges with intelligence in Canada, and
Yeah.
demonstrate that there isn't, sorry, an intelligence culture in Canada more broadly, and there's still a problem with having an effective intelligence culture within the public service and within the political class in this country.
I think I read on Twitter that you were talking about when you were Director General of Intelligence at Foreign Affairs. the kind of triage process that you had to go through is what you push forward. And I'm just wondering if you can talk a little bit about what that is like in that kind of a role.
So it's evolved since I was there, and I think that it's more robust, and that's a good thing since I was there. There are a number of officials that work within the Security and Intelligence Bureau of Global Affairs that would receive this information, and that they would receive intelligence, right?
Yeah.
And they then would decide, who are the right consumers of that information. And a lot of that is based on conversations. It's based on their roles and functions. And again, you need to be able to prioritize what goes to certain individuals. But in my role as the Director General, when I would see certain things, I would take it upon myself to literally walk up the stairs to either talk to the deputy, I would, or the deputy's chief of staff, or the associate deputy minister, and then say, hey, I think this needs to get political attention really quickly, because intel is something that happens very fast. Again, there's a huge volume, and more often than not, I think a conversation between an intelligence official and a consumer is much better than just a piece of paper, because you can answer questions, you can do follow-up, you can explain context. And I think that there is too much of a reliance on paper moving from, or digital forms now,
yes,
moving from producer or collector of intelligence to consumer. So I would have that conversation, and I'd have it fairly regularly. It was probably one of the a mixed blessing of being in the role, is that you spend a lot of time with ministers and deputies and their staffs, because you needed to be able to explain what it is that you were bringing to their attention, and why it was important, and also how it fit more broadly within the larger, and I think we talked about this last time, information environment that they have, right? So they have conversations, they have diplomatic reporting, they have newspapers, they have media, academics, all kinds of contacts that help inform them. Intel is just a tiny sliver of that information environment, but it has unique capabilities and has unique kind of aperture to it. Mm-hmm. And it's able to situate that appropriately and effectively for consumers that I think needs to be done more effectively. And I still think that the town, Ottawa, doesn't have that down right.
Okay. I guess the last point on this is, what is it going to take in order to reform that culture? Is it going to be an embarrassing incident like this that starts moving that, or is our normalcy bias going to put a lid over that for too long?
Look, I mean, I think that I'm hopeful. I mean, to be blunt, one of the reasons why I came to the communication security establishment is because for many years I was primarily a consumer of intelligence. Right, in my roles at public safety, in my roles at global affairs, I was a consumer of intel. I wasn't a producer of it. I work very closely with intelligence communities. I work very closely with our Five Eyes partners, but I wasn't a producer. My previous deputy minister, one of the reasons why she wanted me to come over to CSE and become Director General of Intelligence Operations, was to bring that consumer lens to the production process, to look at what kinds of products we have. How do you make them more user-friendly? How do you make it easier for consumers to find the essence of the information in a way that then they could use it? Because it's not helpful to provide people with an avalanche of information that's not useful, and I think that that's where there's still a lot of work to do. And I think this kind of incident, hopefully it will demonstrate that we need to focus not just on collection and production, but we need to invest in distribution and in giving effective training to consumers of intelligence about how to use it, how does it fit within, again, that information environment, so that they can make informed decisions in the national interest. Whether it's threat information, like the one that, the piece of intel that we're talking about, so they can make a decision, okay, hey, we've seen it, we think that, the person who's affected by it needs to be informed. We need to make decisions about perhaps, PNGing or, kicking out diplomats because we now have very clear information that they're behaving inappropriately and inconsistent with the rules of the diplomatic game. But that's going to take work and it's going to take money, right? Like a lot of money on the collection and analysis, and we don't spend very much money, in my opinion, on making sure that the connectivity, the connective tissue between the collectors and the consumers is as robust as it needs to be. And we have a lot to learn from partners like the US, the UK, and others who I think do it much better than we do.
Okay. And so the second part of this conversation is going to flip to this diplomat side, because you also have diplomatic experience. That's just one of these pieces that a lot of people have been scratching their heads around this week is the process of, declaring this diplomat persona non grata, that kind of thing. And I've heard this week a number of times, this is easier said than done. And I'm wondering if you can just kind of explain why that might be. Outside of the context that this is also China, and we know that anything we do will have repercussions in one way or another. So
I don't know if you think it's that complicated. Sorry.
Okay.
I'll disagree with those who think, who overcomplicate things.
Okay.
It's complicated. So the process of declaring an individual persona non grata is very easy. That you actually don't even need a reason. That you cannot like my shirt and say bye-bye. Right in the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations, under Article 9, it says that the receiving state, in this case Canada, does not need to provide any explanation to the sending state about why it is revoking the diplomatic or consular status of people who are in this country.
Okay.
And the obligation then turns on the sending state to remove the person who's been declared persona non grata within a reasonable amount of time, and it's up to the receiving state to make that determination. And we've done it in the past.
Right.
The most recent time was in 2018 when we kicked out 4 Russian diplomats because of we did that in coordination and in support of the United Kingdom. As you may recall, back then there was the incident where they tried to assassinate Mr. Skripal, and there were some poisonings. There were some poisonings. There were innocent people who were killed in that attack, and a number of NATO countries and in solidarity with the United Kingdom declared Russian diplomats in their countries persona non grata. Canada was one of them. So it's not that technically hard to do. Okay. Where is common, where I will grant folks that there is a level of complexity to this, is understanding what the potential consequences are when we do it, right? So it is 100% guaranteed. There is zero question that if we declare any member of the People's Republic of China's diplomatic or consular presence in Canada persona non grata and ask them to leave, the very least that the PRC will do is do a reciprocal, kicking out of Canadian diplomats or consular officials from the PRC. The question is whether or not they will escalate beyond what we kick out. So if we kick out 2, will they, for example, close our consulate in Shanghai? Will they scuttle an economic deal or a trade deal that might be very important for a region or for a particular industry that can cost jobs and that could cost there's an economic consequence. Right. There are also potential consular consequences, right? So are the PRC going to target Canadians living in China or in Hong Kong for harassment or other kinds of intimidation or other tactics that would make their life difficult? So, but all those things are known quantity. None of that is a surprise. Yeah. And the part of the thing that irks me about the claims, oh, this is complicated, people need to understand, is that it assumes that the status quo does not come with a consequence and a cost. And it already is there. And I think that we need to understand what the effect that status quo is. In terms of intimidation of diasporas, in terms of theft of intellectual property, in terms of manipulation of our institutions and democratic processes, this already has a real serious impact on Canadian citizens. And to say that, that's not a cost, I think is unfair, and we really need to balance that out. So that's why I've been calling for a while that we need to actually demonstrate that this kind of behavior is not something we will tolerate. We will not allow these individuals to act with impunity, and I believe quite firmly that we need to declare a number of folks potentially, particularly in the consulates, persona non grata, and show them the door.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to do this, and
Anytime.
We'll do it again in the future.
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks.
Take care.
And that's everything for this week. Join us again next week for some more Canadian politics. I'm Dale Smith. That's at journo_Dale on Twitter. And don't forget to like the video, share, subscribe, and support us on Patreon. Thanks, everyone.